Okay, question 6 here. Final question that's long form. It's going to be: should Dak Prescott be paid? But we're also going to. I want to put exact parameters on it because I feel like people will say, is Dak Prescott? Should the Cowboys pay Dak Prescott? But then people will sort of make their own deal. So I put a specific deal, which is if Dak Prescott said he won't play for under $38 million a year for 5 years, fully guaranteed, should Dallas pay him? And we will go with. I keep forgetting this. This is Cam, right? Yeah, Cam. Go ahead.
This one.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, sorry guys. What a train wreck, man. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Should the Cowboys pay Dak Prescott? It's going to be the question on every ESPN ticker tape and on every show you see. I personally don't think they should pay Dak Prescott. You have built this Dallas Cowboys team from the offense, I should say, from the offensive line back. That gives you the ability to go and sub in somebody, not sub in, but you can replace the Dak Prescott. Look at what Tannehill's doing in Tennessee right now. Tannehill is having success in Tennessee because that offensive line is full of bad dudes, the same way it is in Dallas. In Tennessee and Dallas, they're going to pound the rock to set up their play action game. They're going to stretch you vertically with some bigger receivers, right? And in my eyes, I think that once you stretch field vertically with bigger receivers, I should follow it up with this. I think that it's an easier matchup for that receiver to win one-on-one, and it's easier for that quarterback to place a ball in a position where his receiver is going to win. I look at what Dallas is having with Dak Prescott, and you're going to go and you're going to pay this cat $38 million a year when you've invested your time and money into producing an offensive line that's a top 3 offensive line in the NFL. You have a guy like Ezekiel Elliott behind him, and you have the receivers. It's not like we're going out there with bad receivers, right? Like we said, like Kyle said, we drafted CeeDee Lamb this year. We all know how good he is. We got Amari Cooper. You have guys who can stretch the field and get open. That gives you the ability, like at some point, you're going to have to cut back on what you're doing. You're going to have to cut back on what you're paying to your offense. That cut back is going to be with Dak Prescott. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. I think that you can go and you can trade for a middle-of-the-pack quarterback, or you can move Dak Prescott and get a middle-of-the-pack quarterback. Look at a guy like Josh Rosen. I think that if you put a guy like Josh Rosen in Dak Prescott's position, he's going to do just as well. He's going to be able to put balls on the money. He's going to be able to run that offense because he's not the spotlight. The spotlight's Ezekiel Elliott. The spotlight's the offensive line. And you have receivers who can win on the outside in one-on-one matchups. Guys can make those throws that aren't going to cost $38 million. That's why I don't think Dak Prescott is going to be worth that much money.
All right, Kyle, your response.
So people who have listened to the show know how I feel about Dak Prescott. I say yes. I say yes 1,000 times yes. I just think, the cost of I can't say this enough. I feel like I make this point every week. The cost of paying a top 10 quarterback means it's going to be the highest paid quarterback in the league. It's going to continue to happen. Dak Prescott will be the highest paid quarterback in the league. Then Deshaun Watson will be the highest paid quarterback in the league. Then Patrick Mahomes will be the highest paid quarterback in the league. Then Lamar Jackson will be the highest paid quarterback in the league. It's just going to continue to happen and continue to escalate. And I just think Dak is the next guy in line. Now, I struggle at first with the idea of fully guaranteed $190 million, but then I started looking at it more, and I think it actually makes more sense for Dallas if they lock him in for 5 years, fully guaranteed money. Because I'll start with the business side of it. The business side of it says that, so if they decide to play this next year and franchise tag him again, he's going to make $37 million. That's the 20% increase off his salary from this past season. So I think that 20% increase says, well, why would I take anything less than $38 million? Because I'm guaranteed to make $37 million at least, or I'm going to go in on the open market and make that $38 million contract anyway. So it makes sense for Dallas to lock him in for that 5 years, especially because if you start looking at down the line, that 2022 TV rights deal contract comes up, and there's going to be a huge cap bump because there's already projections, even with everything going on during the pandemic, that the NFL TV rights deal is going to potentially double. So then if they continue to franchise tag him towards that 2022 TV rights deal, that $38 million contract is going to start to look like a $45 million contract or a $46 million contract. Because if the cap's going to go up that much, that's going to be the going price for a quarterback. So if they can lock him into that 5-year deal, I think that's a great move for Dallas. On the other side, I just think you look at the guys, like I said, I think the cost of paying for a top 10 quarterback, and it's true that I think Dak Prescott is a top 10 quarterback. And I think it's difficult to find quarterbacks that are good in football. There's only 32 positions, and there was a long running debate with the Rams and Sean McVay that Sean McVay could manufacture any quarterback to be solid. So there was no point in paying Jared Goff, that they could just go on to another quarterback. Well, they paid Jared Goff because that's really hard to do. And when you have the Cowboys have so many glaring holes on their defense, that are they going to restart all of that to find a new quarterback and try and bring this back to a team that could win the division? I think this team's good enough to win the division now, even with those holes on defense, that starting over at quarterback position is the last thing you want to do with all the pieces that they have around them. I think that having that player at that position is monumental, and I just think that it makes too much sense to pay a guy like Dak Prescott and roll with the punches going forward.
All right, Cam, what do you have to say about that?
I think that if Dallas is looking for sustained success over a number of years, you have to allocate that money elsewhere. And I get what you're saying with the TV deal, and that's a major factor in this, and I don't want to brush over that. It's 100% true. Dak Prescott is a victim of really, really bad timing, though, because there are other spots on this Dallas team that need help before you go and you shell out 38 sheets to your quarterback. And like I said before, the spotlight on this offense is not Dak Prescott. The spotlight on this offense is pounding the rock and taking pressure off of him. So why would you go and pay a dude like that if he's not going to be slinging it 45 times a game, 40 times a game? Why are you going to go and shell out that much money? You can go and you can get a mid-tier quarterback, still be successful, shore up your defense, and continue to win games running the football. In my eyes, it doesn't make sense to pay him right now. You have other spots that you can go and address, and you have other spots that you can go and improve at before you're going to go and pay Dak Prescott that much money and then handcuff yourself down the road.
All right, Kyle.
I think the thing is that, if you look at teams who have gone for mid-tier quarterbacks with talent around them, it doesn't always necessarily work. I think it worked in Tennessee to that AFC Championship game, which I do think Tennessee might regress this next season, but that's a podcast. That's a story for another podcast. It did work with Tannehill that season, but it also didn't work with the Jaguars and Nick Foles. It didn't work with the Bears and Mitch Trubisky. I don't think that necessarily going for that mid-tier guy and saying, well, the talent around him will rise him to the occasion is necessarily a guaranteed thing. And it's really just hard to manufacture a good quarterback. I don't think anybody can just be plucked off the street or even off the bench or waiver wire and just say, hey, you're going to go be a top 15 production kind of guy. Look at the numbers for Prescott last year were 7th in completion percentage, 6th in passing yards, 9th in passing touchdowns, 8th in interception percentage, 8th in touchdown to interception ratio, 8th in passer rating, 15th in sack percentage, 8th in yards per attempt, 8th in adjusted yards per attempt, 6th in adjusted net yards per attempt, 15th in passing yards a game, 14th in passing and rushing yards per game, 3rd in total QBR. And, it can go on and on. Every argument make Dak Prescott a top 10 or even higher kind of quarterback. To have a guy at that level and that production, I think it's just too risky of a ball game in the NFL to roll with saying a mid-tier guy can just have that same sort of production. I don't think a guy, even Andy Dalton, who's on their roster now, I don't think could step into the Dallas team right now and be a top 10 guy and just put up the numbers that they need. So I would pay Dak Prescott in a heartbeat if I were in charge.
Okay, let's go one more round, but do it sort of quickly, like 1 minute each. So Cam, go ahead.
My biggest problem with what you just said is your argument. You looked at the two examples of the Bears and the Jaguars. Jaguars, Nick Foles got injured week 1. So that plan got a major hurdle and literally right off the go. So I don't think that that's really the best thing to look at. And you look at the Bears were looking to make Mitch Trubisky the guy. That's why they drafted him 2 overall, and that ended up failing. And even so, both of those teams don't have the quality of offensive line that the Dallas Cowboys do. So once again, there's only so much that you can spread out in terms of what your salary cap is going to give. So at some point, there's going to be some cuts, and Dak Prescott getting paid $38 million, I don't think that that's going to end up being worth it in the long run. I just don't. I think that like I said, there's other places that you can go, and the spotlight for them is going to be on that running the football. And that's like you look at some of Dak Prescott's stats, a lot of that stuff is opened up. If you put the onus on Dak Prescott and you were like, you're going to throw the rock 45 times a game, we're going to get rid of Ezekiel Elliott, his numbers are going to go down because I haven't seen anything from him yet where I look at it and go, man, he is a legit top 5, top 10. He's going to be the guy who's running the show. That's just not where their team is at. Now, I could be proven wrong. Mike McCarthy could come out this year and be like, hey, you're going to be Rodgers 2.0 for me and sling the rock. I just don't see that being in Dak Prescott's wheelhouse, though.
Okay, Kyle, response. So again, try to keep it around a minute.
Yeah, I just think that overall Prescott, I think he is a great out-of-play action, which plays huge dividends to what he does in Dallas. I think a guy like Mike McCarthy is going to want to pass the ball a lot more, and I think he's going to want to make sure that he has a guy solidified at that quarterback position who he feels confident can throw the ball at least 30 times a game. And I just feel like a spade is a spade, and Mike McCarthy is a passing guy. He's not going to go into a Dallas situation thinking, oh, a year from now, this is going to be Andy Dalton or Nick Foles as my quarterback. He wants a guy who he believes in, and I think it's Dak Prescott.
Okay, this is a tough one. I thought this was very well argued by both sides. I think that one thing that I think that Cam said that I didn't agree with was sort of the fact that they run the offense through Ezekiel Elliott. I think that's a lot of it is true, but at the same time, looking at the numbers, Prescott had the 6th most passing attempts last year. He certainly is a key part of that offense as well. However, I didn't think Kyle rebutted that point, so I don't think it's really fair to hold that against Cam. I think that I do think that what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna call it based on I think that Kyle, where you really screwed up was the 2 examples of, especially putting the Bears in there, which was almost a perfect example to counter your point in some degrees. I think that the 2 examples I didn't really agree with too much. It was a very well fought round, I thought, on both sides, but that one thing is what I'm going to give the point to Cam and tie things up 3-3 heading into the speed round.